I'm Patris Turner, 32 years old, and last Thanksgiving changed my family forever. For years, my sister Amanda pretended I didn't exist when her college friends were around. Being an HVAC technician wasn't prestigious enough for her social circle. But when she banned me from her Thanksgiving table, calling me just a technician in front of everyone, I never expected her boss would be the one to reveal my biggest secret. The look on her face when he announced I was paying her student loans still haunts me. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe to join my journey. Growing up in suburban Chicago, Amanda and I were inseparable despite our 4-year age difference. As the older sister, I took my role seriously, always looking out for her on the playground, defending her from neighborhood bullies, and helping with homework. We shared a bedroom with bunk beds, and I can still remember our late-night whispered conversations about dreams and fears. Amanda would climb down from her top bunk during thunderstorms, and I'd make room for her without complaint. That closeness meant everything to me. Our parents worked hard to provide for us. Dad was an accountant at a mid-size firm, and Mom taught second grade at the local elementary school. They weren't wealthy, but they emphasized education as the path to success. Every report card was scrutinized, every academic achievement celebrated with special dinners. Education is the one thing nobody can take away from you, Dad would say almost weekly. Their definition of success was narrow. University degrees, professional careers, and steady advancement up the corporate ladder. While Amanda thrived under this expectation, excelling in structured learning environments, I found my curiosity pulled in different directions. At 10 years old, I dismantled and successfully reassembled our broken toaster, much to my mother's surprise. By 12, I was the neighborhood's unofficial bicycle repair technician, fixing chains and adjusting brakes for the other kids. There was something deeply satisfying about understanding how things worked, diagnosing problems, and finding solutions with my hands. Throughout middle school, I maintained decent grades, but my science teachers noticed my particular aptitude for understanding mechanical systems. Mr. Brennan, my 8th grade science teacher, even allowed me to rebuild an old air conditioning unit as an independent project. While other students presented posters on photosynthesis, I demonstrated how refrigerant cycles worked with my refurbished unit. I earned an A+ and discovered what would become my lifelong passion. High school brought changes to our sisterly dynamic. As I entered junior year, Amanda started middle school and quickly established herself as academically gifted. Her perfect scores and accelerated classes became the new standard in our household. My solid B+ average in standard classes paled in comparison, though I continued to excel in physics and hands-on technical electives. The more Amanda achieved academically, the more our parents focused their attention on her potential. Amanda might qualify for an Ivy League scholarship, became their new mantra, while my mechanical inclinations were treated as interesting but ultimately impractical hobbies. When I mentioned interest in vocational programs during my junior year, Mom and Dad exchanged worried glances. "You're too smart for trade school, Patris," Mom said. "You need a university degree to succeed in this world." Despite their discouragement, I applied to a prestigious technical institute with an excellent HVAC certification program. My guidance counselor supported my decision, pointing out the growing demand for skilled technicians and the potential for entrepreneurship in the field. When my acceptance letter arrived, I felt proud and validated, but my announcement at dinner was met with uncomfortable silence. "What about Northwestern?" Dad finally asked. "We thought you'd at least try for a university." "This is a temporary plan, right?" Mom added. "You'll get a bachelor's degree eventually." Only Amanda said nothing, studying my face with an expression I couldn't quite read. Later that night, I overheard her talking to our parents. "Maybe Patris just isn't college material," she suggested. "Not everyone is meant for academics." The words stung more coming from my sister than they would have from my parents. That night marked the beginning of a fundamental shift between us. The Technical Institute challenged and engaged me in ways high school never had. I thrived learning about thermodynamics, electrical systems, and mechanical engineering. My instructors praised my intuitive understanding of complex systems and my problem-solving abilities. For the first time in my educational journey, I felt completely in my element. I graduated at the top of my class with multiple job offers, ultimately accepting a position with a well-established HVAC company known for mentoring young technicians. Meanwhile, Amanda graduated high school as valedictorian and received a partial scholarship to an elite private university for business management. Our parents beamed with pride at her graduation party, introducing her to everyone as our future CEO. The contrast with my technical school graduation 3 years earlier was striking. They'd attended, of course, but with a resignation that suggested they were making the best of my disappointing decision. Amanda's education wasn't cheap, even with her scholarship. I overheard tense conversations about second mortgages and retirement funds being tapped. One night, Dad's calculator and financial statements spread across the kitchen table. I saw him rubbing his temples, a gesture I recognized from childhood financial strains. Despite working overtime and reducing expenses, my parents struggled with the prestigious university's steep tuition. My early career had its challenges. Starting as a junior technician meant long hours in uncomfortable conditions, crawling through dusty attics in summer heat and freezing basements in winter. But I learned rapidly, earning certifications in specialized systems and building a reputation for solving problems other technicians couldn't diagnose. After 5 years with the company, I was promoted to lead technician, managing a small team and handling the most complex installations. During this time, Amanda flourished at university, joining exclusive business clubs and securing competitive internships. Her social media showed her attending formal events with classmates dressed in expensive clothing, dining at restaurants I couldn't afford, and traveling during breaks. She came home less frequently, and when she did, our conversations felt increasingly strained. The sister who once shared her deepest thoughts now spoke in vague generalities about amazing opportunities and invaluable connections. By my 28th birthday, I had saved enough to start my own HVAC business. With a small business loan and 2 loyal colleagues from my previous company, I launched Turner HVAC Solutions. Our focus on energy-efficient systems and exceptional customer service quickly distinguished us from competitors. Within 18 months, we expanded to 6 technicians and moved from my garage to a proper commercial space. Success came with financial stability I hadn't anticipated. My accountant, reviewing my quarterly profits, whistled and said, "You know, you're outturning most of your college-educated peers." It was the first time I considered that my practical path might actually be financially advantageous. Around this time, I learned about Amanda's mounting student loan debt. Despite her scholarship and our parents' contributions, she had accumulated nearly $80,000 in loans to cover the remainder of her tuition, housing in an expensive city, and the lifestyle she believed necessary for networking. After graduation, she landed a position with a prestigious consulting firm, but the starting salary barely covered her loan payments and living expenses in Chicago. During a rare family dinner, I noticed Dad's persistent cough and Mom's mention of postponed medical tests due to insurance deductibles. When Amanda excused herself to take a work call, Mom confided that they were still helping with Amanda's loan payments, stretching their finances dangerously thin. That night, I contacted Amanda's loan servicer and arranged to take over the monthly payments anonymously. The representative assured me Amanda would only see that payments were being made, not their source. For 3 years, I quietly paid $1,500 monthly toward my sister's education while building my business. It was a significant amount, but my company's success made it manageable. I never told anyone, wanting Amanda to succeed without feeling indebted to me. I imagined someday telling her, perhaps when she reached a major career milestone, and pictured her surprise and gratitude at the revelation. Instead, the distance between us grew. Amanda moved into an upscale apartment with a roommate from her firm, and began cultivating a circle of friends exclusively from prestigious universities and professional backgrounds. On the rare occasions we spoke, she avoided discussing my work or deflected with comments like, "That's nice, but let me tell you about this amazing project I'm working on." When mutual friends or relatives asked about me in her presence, she would offer minimal information, sometimes incorrectly describing my work as fixing air conditioners or doing mechanical stuff. I heard through our cousin that Amanda once told her university friends I couldn't handle academic pressure and had to settle for trade school. Despite these hurts, I maintained pride in my work. My company developed specialized energy-efficient HVAC solutions that saved clients thousands in annual energy costs. We won contracts with several environmentally conscious businesses and received recognition from industry associations. I hired and trained technicians from diverse backgrounds, including women and veterans transitioning to civilian careers. My work mattered, regardless of Amanda's perception. Last November, after nearly 2 years of minimal contact, Amanda called with an unexpected invitation to Thanksgiving dinner at her apartment. "I'm hosting some friends and colleagues," she explained. "I thought maybe you'd like to join us." The invitation surprised me, particularly given her previous reluctance to introduce me to her social circle. I wondered if perhaps she was finally ready to bridge the gap between our worlds. "I'd love to come," I said, hope rising that this might be a turning point in our relationship. "Should I bring anything?" "Just yourself," she replied. "And maybe dress professionally. Some important people from work will be there." The comment stung, but I pushed aside my disappointment. Perhaps this was Amanda's awkward way of trying to include me in her life again. I spent the week looking forward to reconnecting with my sister, choosing a thoughtful gift, and selecting an outfit that would make her comfortable introducing me to her friends. I wanted this dinner to be the beginning of a new chapter for us, one where our different paths might finally be accepted as equally valid. The day before Thanksgiving, I visited an upscale wine shop to select a gift for Amanda. Knowing she enjoyed sophisticated wines, I chose an expensive bottle of Cabernet from a boutique California vineyard, spending nearly $200. The shop owner wrapped it elegantly, and I added a card expressing my gratitude for the invitation and my hope for more shared holidays. Thanksgiving morning, I carefully selected my outfit, wanting to respect Amanda's request for professionalism without compromising my identity. I chose tailored black pants, a burgundy cashmere sweater, and simple gold jewelry. My work typically demanded practical clothing, but I maintained a small collection of nicer pieces for client meetings and special occasions. Looking in the mirror, I felt confident and appropriate for a holiday dinner. The drive to Amanda's apartment took 45 minutes, her neighborhood distinctly upscale with boutique shops and trendy restaurants lining the streets. Her building featured a doorman and marble lobby, trappings of the success she had always coveted. As I approached her door, carrying the wine and a small bouquet of autumn flowers, I felt nervous anticipation. 3 years had passed since we'd spent significant time together. Amanda's greeting was cooler than expected. She opened the door with a quick, "You're early," though I had arrived exactly at the time she specified. Her eyes scanned my outfit with subtle disapproval. "Oh, you didn't wear a dress. Everyone else will be dressed up." The criticism was delivered casually, as though she were merely observing rather than judging. Stepping inside, I admired her apartment, with its high ceilings and modern furnishings. "This is beautiful, Amanda. You've done really well for yourself." "Thanks," she replied, taking the wine without examining it and placing it on a counter crowded with more expensive bottles. "I've worked hard to get here." The flowers received a similarly disinterested reception, left unwrapped on the kitchen island. Amanda's roommate Sophia emerged from another room, greeting me with unexpected warmth. "You must be Patris. Amanda mentioned you were coming." Her genuine smile contrasted sharply with my sister's reception. "Can I get you something to drink? We have a signature cocktail for tonight." As Sophia mixed my drink, Amanda busied herself with final dinner preparations, her back turned to our conversation. When Sophia asked about my work, I explained my company's focus on energy-efficient HVAC solutions and recent expansion. Oh, Amanda interrupted, turning around. Patris fixes air conditioners. Sophia, could you check if the ice bucket needs refilling? The dismissive characterization stung, but I maintained my composure. Actually, my company designs and installs complete climate control systems for commercial and residential buildings. We specialize in reducing carbon footprints while maximizing comfort. Amanda smiled tightly. Let's not bore Sophia with technical details. Could you set these napkins out while I finish the appetizers? For the next hour, I tried to participate in preparations, offering to help with more complex tasks, but Amanda consistently assigned me the simplest jobs. Folding napkins, filling water glasses, arranging store-bought cookies on a platter. Meanwhile, she discussed work projects with Sophia, pointedly excluding me from their conversation. When my phone rang, I excused myself to answer, recognizing the number of a valued commercial client. The brief conversation involved troubleshooting an issue with their system, which I quickly diagnosed and arranged for my on-call technician to address. Returning to the kitchen, I found Amanda frowning. Do you really need to take work calls today? She asked. It seems a bit unprofessional during a holiday. That was an emergency call from the children's hospital, I explained. Their backup system needed immediate attention. My technician is handling it now. Amanda raised an eyebrow. Well, maybe put your phone on silent during dinner. My boss will be here and I don't want interruptions. As guests began arriving, Amanda's demeanor shifted dramatically. She transformed into a gracious hostess, laughing warmly and greeting each person with enthusiasm I hadn't seen directed at me in years. The introductions followed a pattern. Detailed explanations of each guest's professional accomplishments, prestigious alma maters, and connections to Amanda's work. When my turn came, Amanda's introduction was tellingly brief. This is my sister Patris. She works in maintenance. The hesitation and euphemism weren't lost on me, nor was the quick pivot to introducing the next guest, a Harvard-educated attorney. The seating arrangement placed me at the far end of the table, separated from Amanda by 6 other guests. As wine flowed and conversation grew animated, I found myself largely forgotten, occasionally catching fragments of discussions about industry trends, market projections, and weekend getaways to exclusive resorts. I attempted to join a conversation about sustainable business practices, a topic relevant to my work promoting energy-efficient systems. We've reduced energy consumption in several local businesses by 30% with our new installations, I offered. That's nice, responded one of Amanda's colleagues without making eye contact. As I was saying about our firm's environmental initiative. The dismissal became a pattern throughout the appetizer course. Each attempt to contribute was met with polite but immediate redirection. When conversation turned to compensation packages and someone asked about my industry, Amanda smoothly changed the subject to holiday bonus structures at her firm. Between courses, I retreated to the bathroom, needing a moment alone to compose myself. Staring at my reflection, I questioned why I had accepted this invitation. Was I hoping for a reconciliation that Amanda clearly didn't want? Was I subjecting myself to humiliation out of some lingering loyalty to our childhood bond? The sister who once climbed into my bed during thunderstorms now seemed determined to erase any meaningful connection between us. Taking a deep breath, I resolved to maintain my dignity through dinner. I would be pleasant and engaged, regardless of Amanda's behavior, and then politely excuse myself at the earliest appropriate moment. With renewed determination, I returned to the table, prepared to endure whatever came next for the sake of holiday civility. Returning to the dining room, I found the conversation had turned to educational credentials. Amanda's friends were comparing their prestigious universities and advanced degrees with obvious pride. One woman was describing her doctoral research at Princeton when another guest turned to me directly. What about you, Patris? Where did you attend college? Before I could answer, Amanda interjected swiftly. Patris took a different path. She's more hands-on. Her tone carried a hint of apology, as though my education required explanation or excuse. An uncomfortable silence fell over the nearby guests, followed by polite nods and what appeared to be pitying smiles. One woman murmured something about alternative careers being so valuable too, her condescension thinly veiled. I was formulating a response when the doorbell rang, signaling the arrival of the final guests. Amanda's entire demeanor changed, her posture straightening and smile becoming more fixed. "That's Martin and his wife," she whispered to Sophia. "Make sure the wine is ready." Martin, I soon learned, was Amanda's boss, a senior partner at her consulting firm. His presence clearly represented an important networking opportunity for her. She greeted him with carefully calibrated deference and enthusiasm, introducing each guest with relevant details that might impress him. When she reached me, her introduction was notably brief. "And this is my sister Patris." "Lovely to meet you," Martin said, extending his hand. "What do you do, Patris?" "I own an HVAC company specializing in energy-efficient systems," I replied directly. "Interesting," he nodded, before Amanda deftly guided him to the next guest, a finance director whose connection might prove more valuable to her. Despite the earlier slight, I made an effort to be supportive of Amanda's obvious desire to impress her boss. When she mentioned a recent project she'd led, I offered genuine praise. "That sounds challenging. You always were good at coordinating complex situations." She acknowledged my comment with a tight smile before quickly returning her attention to Martin's conversation. Throughout the meal service, I noticed her constant monitoring of his reactions, adjusting topics based on his level of engagement. Her need for his approval was palpable and somewhat sad to witness. As the main course was served, discussion turned to professional accomplishments and industry innovations. Several guests described recent projects, each narrative emphasizing the strategic importance and impressive outcomes of their work. During a momentary lull, I mentioned an energy-efficient HVAC installation my company had developed for a local community center. "We created a hybrid system that reduced their energy costs by 40% while improving air quality for the children's programs," I explained. "The center used the savings to fund an after-school literacy program." Amanda cleared her throat loudly. "I don't think anyone wants to hear about air conditioning at Thanksgiving dinner, Patris." Her dismissive tone silenced me immediately. Martin, however, showed brief interest. "Actually, our firm has been looking at environmental upgrades for our headquarters." "Perhaps." "Speaking of headquarters," Amanda quickly interjected, "I've been meaning to tell you about my proposal for the quarterly meeting structure." The conversation was efficiently redirected, and I was once again relegated to silent observer. Moments later, Amanda stood to propose a toast to successful careers and brilliant futures, her glass raised toward everyone except me. The exclusion wasn't subtle, and I noticed Martin's wife glancing at me with curiosity. As dinner progressed, I began to fully understand that I hadn't been invited as Amanda's beloved sister, but rather as some sort of charity case she could present to demonstrate her generosity. The realization settled heavily as she led guests on a tour of her apartment, proudly pointing out expensive furnishings and art pieces. "I was able to afford this place entirely on my own," she emphasized, though I knew our parents had helped with her security deposit. "Hard work and strategic career planning made all this possible." One guest mentioned rising student loan interest rates, commenting on how challenging repayment had become for many professionals. Amanda nodded sympathetically, but quickly changed the subject to an upcoming industry conference. I sat silently, knowing that each month, $1,500 left my business account to ensure her loans remained in good standing. During dessert, I found myself seated near Martin's wife, Laura, who seemed genuinely interested in my work. "So you own your own company? That's impressive. How many employees do you have?" "We've grown to 6 full-time technicians and 2 office staff," I explained. "We're looking to expand further next year." "That's more than a small business," she observed. "You must be doing well." Our conversation continued pleasantly until I noticed Amanda watching us with obvious discomfort. Within minutes, she appeared at my side with a fresh bottle of red wine, which she proceeded to accidentally spill across the front of my sweater while reaching past me. "Oh, I'm so clumsy," she exclaimed with exaggerated distress. "Patris, you should go clean up right away before it stains." The accident was clearly deliberate, from the angle of the bottle to her lack of genuine remorse. As I excused myself to the bathroom, I heard Amanda smoothly inserting herself into the conversation with Laura, effectively replacing me. In the bathroom, blotting the wine from my ruined cashmere sweater, I heard voices from the hallway outside. The door wasn't completely closed, and Amanda's voice carried clearly. "I know it's awkward having her here," she was saying to someone. "She's just a technician, not a real professional." I invited her out of obligation, but I didn't expect her to try networking with Martin's wife. "It's embarrassing." My hand stilled on the fabric as the words registered. The casual cruelty in her tone, the dismissal of my entire career and accomplishments, cut deeper than any previous slight. For a moment, I considered leaving immediately, slipping out without confrontation or goodbyes. But something inside me hardened. I had built a successful business from nothing, employed 8 people, and solved complex engineering problems daily. I deserved basic respect, especially from my own sister. With renewed determination, I finished cleaning my sweater as best I could and returned to the table with my head held high. The burgundy stain remained visible, but I refused to let it or Amanda's words diminish me. As I re-entered the dining room, conversation abruptly ceased. The sudden silence confirmed my suspicion that I had been the topic of discussion. Taking my seat, I maintained a composed expression despite the uncomfortable awareness that everyone had likely heard Amanda's opinion of my profession. Coffee was being served when one of Amanda's friends, a woman who had barely acknowledged me all evening, suddenly addressed me directly. "Patris, don't you sometimes wish you'd gone to college like Amanda? It must be difficult watching her success, knowing you could have had similar opportunities." The question landed like a deliberate provocation. Around the table, I noticed several uncomfortable shifts and exchanged glances, suggesting this was exactly what they'd been discussing in my absence. Amanda watched with poorly concealed anticipation, clearly curious about my response. "Actually," I replied carefully, "I find tremendous fulfillment in my career. I solve complex problems, help clients reduce their environmental impact, and provide employment for 8 people. Success takes many forms." Amanda released a dismissive laugh. "She's just saying that because she couldn't handle university coursework. Patris always struggled with academic pressure." The blatant lie stunned me momentarily. I had maintained a solid B+ average throughout high school while working part-time jobs. My decision to pursue technical education had been exactly that, a decision, not a fallback due to academic limitations. "That's not accurate," I stated firmly. "I chose my path because it aligned with my strengths and interests. My business has grown 30% annually for 3 consecutive years. Running a small repair service isn't exactly a corporate achievement," Amanda countered, her voice taking on a sharper edge. "Anyone can start a little business. Turner HVAC Solutions employs 6 certified technicians besides myself, plus administrative staff," I explained, maintaining my composure despite growing anger. "We hold contracts with several major businesses throughout Chicago and have developed proprietary energy-efficient systems." The table had grown uncomfortably silent, guests watching our exchange with a mixture of embarrassment and fascination. Martin and his wife exchanged glances, clearly sensing the tension. Amanda's face flushed. "I'm sorry everyone has to listen to this. It's honestly embarrassing." She directed her next words specifically to me, her voice lowered but still audible to those nearby. "Maybe you should eat in the kitchen until dessert is finished." I stared at her in disbelief. "Are you asking me to leave the table? You're making me look like a failure for having a sister who fixes air conditioners," she hissed. "This dinner is important for my career. Please just go." The words hit with stunning force. Around the table, guests suddenly became intensely interested in their coffee cups or dessert plates, avoiding eye contact with either of us. Martin's uncomfortable expression suggested he found the situation distasteful, but he remained silent. For a moment, I couldn't respond, processing the magnitude of Amanda's rejection. My sister was literally banishing me from her table because my profession embarrassed her. 27 years of shared history, of childhood promises and sisterly bonds, evaporated in that single, cruel request. Drawing a deep breath, I placed my napkin beside my plate and stood with as much dignity as I could muster. "I'll give you space to enjoy your dinner," I said quietly. "Thank you all for the conversation." Walking to the kitchen, I felt multiple pairs of eyes on my back but refused to let my posture show defeat. Once alone, I leaned against the counter, allowing silent tears to fall. The wine stain on my sweater felt symbolic of the permanent mark this evening would leave on our relationship. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Are you okay?" That was completely uncalled for. The small kindness nearly broke my composure entirely. I typed back a brief "I'm fine" while contemplating my next move. Part of me wanted to reveal the truth about the monthly loan payments, to watch Amanda's carefully constructed image crumble before her precious colleagues. The knowledge that I could expose her financial dependence on the just-a-technician sister offered momentary temptation. Yet something held me back. Revealing the payments in anger would transform my years of silent support into a weapon, tainting what had begun as an act of love. Whatever Amanda had become, whatever cruelty she now showed, I didn't want to stoop to public humiliation as revenge. Instead, I splashed cold water on my face, reapplied minimal makeup, and made a decision. I would return to the table with my head held high. I would endure whatever remained of this excruciating dinner with dignity. And afterward, I would reevaluate what kind of relationship, if any, I wanted with the sister who found me so embarrassing. Dessert was being cleared when I quietly returned to the dining room. My appearance created another moment of awkward silence before conversation haltingly resumed. Amanda pointedly avoided looking at me, focusing instead on describing a tiramisu recipe to a guest across the table. The stain on my sweater had dried to a dull burgundy patch, impossible to ignore but something I refused to be ashamed of. Sophia offered me coffee with a sympathetic smile, which I accepted gratefully. The warm cup provided something to hold, a small comfort in the continuing discomfort. Most guests seemed determined to pretend the earlier incident hadn't occurred, though occasional glances in my direction suggested it remained fresh in their minds. Amanda attempted to restore normalcy by enthusiastically describing a recent work project. "We completely restructured the client's approach to market segmentation," she explained, directing her comments primarily toward Martin. "The preliminary results show a 17% improvement in targeted conversion rates." "Impressive," Martin nodded. "Who else was on that team?" "Primarily myself and Danny L. from Analytics," Amanda replied. "Though we consulted with several department heads." The conversation shifted to industry trends, with several guests commenting on challenges facing young professionals. A discussion about housing costs in desirable neighborhoods led naturally to the topic of financial pressures. "The combination of student loans and Chicago rent is brutal for people starting their careers," one man commented. "My monthly loan payment is almost as much as my rent." Others nodded in agreement, sharing stories of financial sacrifices and repayment strategies. Amanda, who rarely contributed to discussions about financial struggle, surprisingly joined in. "It's definitely challenging, but with careful planning, it's manageable," she stated confidently. "I've managed all my own expenses since graduation, including my loan payments. Financial independence was always important to me." The blatant lie nearly made me choke on my coffee. For 3 years, I had faithfully paid $1,500 monthly toward her student loans, a fact she either didn't know or was willfully misrepresenting. Before I could decide how to respond, Martin turned his attention toward me. "Patras, you mentioned your business earlier. What's it called? I'm always interested in successful entrepreneurial ventures. Turner HVAC Solutions, I replied. We specialize in energy-efficient climate control systems for commercial and residential properties. Martin's expression shifted suddenly, his eyebrows rising in recognition. Wait, Turner. As in Patris Turner, his voice carried clearly across the now quiet table. Yes, that's me, I confirmed, uncertain about his reaction. Martin turned toward Amanda, his next words sending shockwaves through the room. The one paying your loans? He asked, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Complete silence descended upon the table. Amanda's face drained of color, her expression transitioning from confusion to horror as the implication of Martin's words registered. Every guest froze, wine glasses halfway to lips, dessert forks suspended in midair, as they processed this unexpected revelation. What are you talking about? Amanda stammered, her composure entirely abandoned. Martin seemed genuinely confused by her reaction. When we were processing your application for the loan refinancing program last month, I noticed the payment source. Turner HVAC Solutions has been making your monthly payments for years. I assumed you knew. The guest's expressions transformed from awkward discomfort to fascinated shock. Amanda's carefully constructed image of financial independence crumbled visibly before everyone she had been so desperate to impress. There must be some mistake, she insisted weakly, but her eyes told a different story. They darted toward me, filled with questions and dawning realization. No mistake, Martin continued, seemingly unaware of the devastating impact of his casual observation. In fact, do you know her company is the preferred contractor for our corporate buildings downtown? The energy-efficient system she designed saves us over $30,000 annually in operating costs. The irony was almost too perfect. Not only had my embarrassing profession been financially supporting Amanda, but my company had a business relationship with her firm that she'd never bothered to discover. The sister she had dismissed as just a technician had been silently enabling her prestigious lifestyle while also impressing her employer through entirely separate professional channels. Amanda's face cycled through emotions, her carefully applied makeup unable to conceal her shock, embarrassment, and confusion. She opened her mouth to speak several times but found no words. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Sophia attempted to redirect the conversation with a comment about dessert, but the damage was irreversible. I felt no triumph in Amanda's humiliation, only a profound sadness. This wasn't how I had imagined her discovering my support. In my daydreams, I had pictured a private moment, perhaps years in the future, when I would tell her about the payments as a demonstration of sisterly love. Instead, her secret dependence on me had been exposed in the most public and humiliating way possible, before the very people she had been trying to impress at my expense. Martin's wife Laura turned to me with newfound respect. You've been paying your sister's student loans. That's incredibly generous. Before I could respond, Martin added, and substantial considering the amount. What is it, about $1,500 monthly? Amanda's face crumpled slightly at the public disclosure of the exact figure. Her carefully constructed persona of independent success was unraveling thread by thread before her colleagues and friends. The power dynamic between us had shifted dramatically in mere moments, and neither of us had been prepared for it. Yes, approximately that amount, I confirmed quietly, trying to minimize further embarrassment for Amanda. It was a private arrangement. Martin nodded appreciatively. Well, your company does exceptional work. We've been extremely satisfied with the systems you installed in our downtown offices. I had no idea there was a personal connection to one of our team members. The conversation awkwardly continued, but the atmosphere had fundamentally changed. Guests began checking watches and mentioning early morning commitments, the earlier conviviality replaced by palpable discomfort. Amanda remained largely silent, responding to comments with tight smiles and minimal words. Her eyes occasionally flicked to me with expressions ranging from confusion to resentment to something that might have been shame. Within 30 minutes, the first guests made their excuses to leave. Others quickly followed, the planned evening ending significantly earlier than intended. Martin and Laura were among the last to depart, with Martin specifically seeking me out to shake my hand. "Your sister never mentioned your company's accomplishments," he said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "We should talk about expanding your services to our other properties. Here's my card." Amanda watched this exchange with a stunned expression, witnessing her boss treating her embarrassing sister as a valued business connection. As the door closed behind the final guest, an oppressive silence fell over the apartment. Amanda stood motionless in the entryway, her perfect hosting persona completely abandoned, while Sophia tactfully disappeared into her bedroom. The reckoning I had never sought had arrived, bringing with it consequences neither of us could have anticipated. The truth had emerged, not through my revelation but through random circumstance, and now we would have to face what it meant for our relationship. As the door closed behind the last departing guest, Amanda remained frozen in the entryway. Her carefully constructed facade had crumbled, leaving her uncharacteristically vulnerable. Sophia quickly made herself scarce, murmuring something about organizing her room before disappearing down the hallway. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken accusations and questions. Amanda broke it first, her voice tight with anger and humiliation. "How could you do this to me?" she demanded, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. "How could you humiliate me like that in front of everyone?" The accusation was so fundamentally unfair that I almost laughed. "I never told him, Amanda. I've kept your payments private for 3 years. You did this to yourself." "You should have said something when he brought it up," she insisted, moving into the living room and sinking onto the couch. "You just sat there and let everyone hear about it." "What exactly would you have preferred?" I asked, remaining standing. "Should I have called your boss a liar? Created some elaborate explanation for why my company name is on your loan payments? You're angry because the truth came out, not because I did anything wrong." My calm response seemed to fuel her distress. She stood again, pacing the room. "You have no idea what you've done. Do you know how hard I've worked to build my professional reputation? To be taken seriously. And now everyone thinks I'm just some charity case living off my sister's money." The unfairness of her perspective ignited my own anger, years of accumulated hurts rising to the surface. "No, Amanda. What they discovered is that while you were calling me just a technician and making me eat in the kitchen, I was the one supporting your lifestyle. While you were embarrassed to introduce me as your sister, I was quietly ensuring your loans stayed current." Her face flushed with a mixture of shame and defensiveness. "I never asked you to pay my loans." "No, you didn't," I acknowledged. "I did it because 3 years ago, I saw Mom and Dad struggling to help you while postponing their own medical care. I did it because despite everything, you're my sister and I wanted you to succeed." This revelation seemed to momentarily deflate her anger. Mom and Dad were postponing medical care. Dad's persistent cough. Mom's routine tests she kept rescheduling. They were stretching themselves thin trying to help with your expenses. I stepped in so they could take care of themselves. Amanda sank back onto the couch, absorbing this information. "I didn't know," she said softly. "You never asked," I replied, my voice gentler now. "You were so focused on appearances, on impressing your colleagues and friends, that you never questioned how everything was being financed." "How much?" she asked after a pause. "How much have you paid?" "About $78,000 over the past 3 years." The figure hung in the air between us. Amanda's eyes widened as she calculated what that meant. That's almost the entire balance." "Yes," I confirmed simply. "Why would you do that? Especially when I've been—" She trailed off, perhaps finally recognizing how she had treated me. "Because that's what family does, Amanda. Or at least it's what family should do. We support each other, regardless of career paths or educational choices." She studied her hands, avoiding my gaze. "I don't understand. If you could afford that, why did you become an HVAC technician? You could have gone to college yourself." The question revealed how fundamentally she had misunderstood my choices. I didn't settle for being an HVAC technician, Amanda. I chose it because I love the work. I'm good at it. My business is successful not despite my technical education, but because of it. But everyone respects degrees and professional careers, she insisted, echoing our parents' long-held beliefs. Do you think respect only comes from titles? I challenged. I've built something meaningful. My company employs 8 people who can support their families because of jobs I created. We've developed systems that reduce environmental impact and save clients thousands in energy costs. The work I do matters. For perhaps the first time, Amanda seemed to actually listen as I described my business success. I explained our annual revenue, profit margins, and growth trajectory. I detailed major contracts we'd secured and innovations we'd developed. As I spoke, her expression shifted from dismissive to surprised, and finally to something approaching respect. I had no idea, she admitted. The way Mom and Dad talked about your career choice. I just assumed. You assumed I was struggling because I didn't follow the path they valued, I finished for her. You never bothered to ask about my reality. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. And I've been horrible to you, she finally said, her voice barely audible. Tonight was inexcusable. It was, I agreed, not softening the truth. Making me eat in the kitchen. Deliberately spilling wine on me. Calling me just a technician to your friends. That went beyond rudeness, Amanda. I know, she acknowledged, tears finally spilling. I've been so focused on appearances, on what people think success looks like. I'm drowning in pressure to maintain this image, to prove I'm exceptional. She gestured around her expensive apartment. Half the time I'm terrified everyone will realize I'm just faking my confidence. This vulnerability, so uncharacteristic of the sister who had projected nothing but certainty for years, cracked something in my anger. You don't need to fake anything, Amanda. You're intelligent and capable. But you've been measuring yourself against impossible standards and dismissing anyone who doesn't fit your narrow definition of success. She nodded slowly, wiping tears. Where does this leave us? Will you continue the loan payments? The question brought us to the heart of the matter, to decisions about our future relationship. I think it's time you take responsibility for your remaining balance, I said firmly. Not because I can't afford it, but because it's the right thing for your growth. Rather than protesting, she nodded. That's fair. More than fair, considering everything. As for us, I continued, I need time. Tonight showed me how deeply you've devalued me and my choices. We can't simply return to normal after that. I understand, she whispered. For what it's worth, I'm truly sorry. Not just because I was exposed, but because I've been terrible to you for years. She hesitated before adding, do you think we could start over somehow? Meet occasionally, maybe coffee sometimes. The request was tentative, lacking her usual confidence. I considered it carefully, wanting neither to slam the door on reconciliation nor to minimize the hurt that had occurred. We can try, I finally said. Small steps with clear boundaries. And honesty, Amanda. Real honesty about who we are and what we value. She nodded, looking simultaneously relieved and apprehensive. I'd like that. We sat in silence for a moment, both recognizing that years of damage couldn't be repaired in one night. Then Amanda spoke again, her voice thoughtful. Mom and Dad really created this divide between us, didn't they? Their constant messaging about what success looked like, what careers mattered. They did contribute to it, I agreed. But we're adults now. We made our own choices about how to treat each other. Amanda nodded again, acknowledgement of her role in our fractured relationship. I have a lot to think about. And apparently, a loan payment to make next month. Despite everything, the comment made both of us smile slightly, a tiny break in the tension. It wasn't forgiveness or resolution, merely an acknowledgement that something had fundamentally shifted between us. The carefully constructed walls of prestige and appearance that had separated us for years had begun to crumble, revealing the possibility of a more authentic connection. As I gathered my things to leave, Amanda made no attempt to maintain the falsehoods that had defined our relationship for so long. "Thank you," she said simply, "not just for the payments, but for coming tonight even though I was terrible." "We'll talk soon," I promised, neither committing to immediate reconciliation nor closing the door on our relationship. The path forward would require work from both of us, particularly Amanda, but for the first time in years, it seemed possible that we might find our way back to some version of the closeness we'd once shared. 6 months have passed since that Thanksgiving night changed everything between Amanda and me. Spring has brought new growth not just to Chicago's parks, but to my business and, surprisingly, to our relationship. Turner HVAC Solutions secured 3 major corporate contracts this quarter, expanding our team to include 2 additional technicians and an office manager. The company I built from nothing now employs 11 people, each paycheck representing stability for families across Chicago. Setting boundaries with family proved more challenging than business growth. After Thanksgiving, I needed distance to process years of accumulated hurt. Through weekly therapy sessions, I began to understand how family dynamics had shaped both Amanda's need for prestige and my quiet determination to prove my worth through actions rather than credentials. Our parents had unintentionally created a hierarchy of success that pitted us against each other from adolescence. Amanda's initial attempts at reconciliation revealed how deeply ingrained her attitudes were. Our first coffee meeting 3 weeks after Thanksgiving began with her detailed explanation of how she defended my career to her colleagues, as though I needed her validation to legitimize my work. When I pointed this out, she grew defensive before catching herself, a pattern that would repeat during our early conversations. "I'm trying," she would say when I noted her unconscious condescension. "I know," I would acknowledge. "But trying doesn't mean you've succeeded yet." Each month, we met at a neutral coffee shop midway between our homes. These meetings were sometimes tense, sometimes tearful, but increasingly honest. Amanda struggled with the financial reality of managing her own loan payments, confessing during our March meeting that she had needed to adjust her spending habits significantly. "I had to cancel my personal shopper subscription," she admitted with a self-deprecating laugh. "And I moved my hair appointments from monthly to every 6 weeks. Devastating sacrifices," I teased gently, encouraged by her ability to laugh at herself. "It's embarrassing how entitled I became," she replied more seriously. "I assumed certain luxuries were necessities." April marked a turning point when Amanda asked to visit my workshop. The request surprised me, as she had shown no previous interest in seeing my professional world. On a sunny Saturday morning, I gave her a tour of the commercial space housing our operations, explaining the systems we designed and the environmental impact of our innovations. What struck me most was Amanda's genuine attention. Rather than the performative interest she might have shown months earlier, she asked thoughtful questions and observed the technical drawings with real curiosity. "This is incredible, Patris," she said, examining a schematic for a hospital climate control system. "I never realized how complex these systems are." "You're basically an engineer." "That's exactly what I am," I confirmed. "Just without the framed degree." "The degree wouldn't make you any better at this," she acknowledged, a significant concession from someone who had defined worth by academic credentials for so long. More meaningful than her words was watching Amanda interact with my team. She listened attentively as Jordan, one of our senior technicians, explained a troubleshooting process. She asked Melissa, our newest hire and a Navy veteran, about her transition to civilian work in HVAC. By lunch, Amanda had gained a visibly new perspective on the profession she had once dismissed as merely fixing air conditioners. As May approached, I made a decision that surprised even me. "I'm hosting Thanksgiving this year," I announced during our monthly coffee. "At my house. I'd like you to come." Amanda looked up from her latte with genuine surprise. "Really? You want me there after last year?" "Last year was a turning point," I explained. "Painful, yes, but necessary. I'm not suggesting we pretend it didn't happen. I'm suggesting we build something new." She agreed with uncharacteristic humility, offering to bring a dish rather than assuming control of the menu. The simple gesture reflected months of gradual change in her approach to our relationship. Our monthly meetings expanded to include occasional dinners and even a Sunday afternoon helping me repaint my living room. During these longer interactions, Amanda slowly began sharing vulnerabilities she had previously concealed beneath her polished exterior. "Sometimes I feel like an imposter at work," she confessed while we applied second coats to my dining room. "Everyone seems so confident, and I'm constantly afraid they'll discover I'm not as brilliant as they think." "That's normal," I assured her. "Most people feel that way sometimes." "You don't," she observed. "You've always seemed secure in your abilities." "Because I demonstrate my competence daily through tangible results," I explained. "When an HVAC system works perfectly, there's no ambiguity. In your world of consulting and strategic planning, success is often more subjectively measured." These conversations, gradually increasing in honesty and depth, laid groundwork for genuine reconnection. Amanda began to value my perspective not despite my different career path, but because of the unique insights it provided. By late summer, Amanda had begun introducing me properly to friends and colleagues. She invited to her apartment for dinner parties substantially different from the previous Thanksgiving. "This is my sister Patras, who owns Turner HVAC Solutions," she would say without hesitation or qualification. The shift wasn't just semantic, but reflected fundamental change in how she perceived my work and its value. Last week, as autumn leaves began transforming Chicago's landscape, Amanda called with surprising news. "I've paid off the final loan balance," she announced. "All $78,000 is cleared." "That's fantastic," I replied, genuinely proud of her disciplined approach to assuming financial responsibility. "I couldn't have done it without your help," she acknowledged. "Not just the payments you made, but the wake-up call about financial reality. I realized I was living beyond my means to impress people who didn't actually care about me." Her growing self-awareness represented the most significant change since our Thanksgiving confrontation. The sister who had once defined herself through external validation was learning to measure success by more meaningful metrics. Our parents have struggled more than Amanda to adjust to our new dynamic. During their summer visit, Mom still referred to my alternative career and suggested business courses that might elevate my work. Dad continued comparing Amanda's corporate achievements to my entrepreneurial success, subtly reinforcing hierarchies. Yet even they have begun recognizing the flaw in their narrow definition of accomplishment, particularly after touring my expanded facility and meeting clients who spoke highly of our services. The most valuable lesson from this painful journey has been understanding that real respect isn't derived from titles, degrees, or social perceptions. It comes from integrity, from creating value through your work, and from treating others with dignity regardless of their career paths. Amanda needed public humiliation to recognize this truth. I needed the confrontation to stand firmly in my worth rather than silently accepting disrespect. True healing doesn't mean forgetting past hurts, but incorporating them into a more nuanced understanding of ourselves and our relationships. Amanda and I will never return to the simple closeness of our childhood bunk beds and thunderstorm comforts. Instead, we're building something potentially stronger. A relationship between adults who see each other clearly, with all our flaws and strengths acknowledged. This Thanksgiving will be different. My dining table isn't as elegant as Amanda's, and my apartment lacks her designer touches. But everyone seated around it will be there because they genuinely value each other, not because of professional connections or prestige. Real giving of thanks, I've learned, has nothing to do with appearances and everything to do with authentic gratitude for the people who enrich our lives. Have you ever had to stand up for your worth when someone undervalued your work or choices? What helped you maintain your dignity in challenging family situations? Share your experiences in the comments below and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Your journey matters, regardless of whether it follows conventional paths or breaks new ground. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, true success is measured by integrity and impact, not by titles or credentials.